Waking up at 3 a.m. is one of the most frustrating sleep patterns because it feels so specific. You fall asleep, everything seems fine, and then suddenly your brain turns on. You may feel wired, anxious, hot, hungry, restless, itchy, or wide awake for no clear reason. But here's the key. 3 a.m. wake ups are not always just insomnia. Sometimes your body is responding to a cortisol spike, sometimes it's correcting a blood sugar dip, sometimes histamine is creating a wake up signal, and sometimes your calming neurotransmitter system, especially GABA, is not holding you through the night. So today, I want to help you understand the 4 most common biological patterns behind the middle of the night waking and how genes and labs can help you stop guessing. Hi, I'm Jezel Rosa, a psychiatric nurse practitioner and mental health coach where we talk about mental wellness from the inside out. And today's video is not about diagnosing yourself based on one symptom. It's about learning how to read patterns. Because waking at 3 a.m. can look the same on the surface, but the biology underneath may be very different. One person may need better blood sugar stability. Another may need nervous system regulation. Another may need histamine support, and another may need to reset their circadian rhythm. And for many people, it's not one pathway, it's several pathways interacting. So let's break it down. So, starting with the cortisol pattern. Cortisol is one of your main stress hormones, but it's not bad. You need cortisol to wake up, maintain blood pressure, regulate energy, and respond to stress. In a healthy rhythm, cortisol is lowest overnight and begins rising in the early morning to help you wake up. But when that rhythm shifts too early, you may wake up at 2, 3, or 4 a.m. feeling alert before you're ready to be awake. Now, this can feel like a sudden switch turning on. You may wake with racing thoughts, a faster heartbeat, tension in your body, or a sense that your brain immediately starts scanning your life. This pattern is common in people who are running on high stress during the day and never fully downshifting at night. It's also common in people who are sensitive to stimulation, caffeine, emotional stress, or late night work. And this is where genes like COMT can give us clues, because COMT helps break down catecholamines like dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine. And these are part of the alertness and stress response system. If COMT activity is slower, some people may feel more sensitive to stress chemistry and stimulation. Now, it doesn't mean that COMT causes insomnia. It means your stress chemistry may be part of your sleep pattern. And a cortisol rhythm test can be helpful here because one morning cortisol level does not show the full daily curve. And a multi-point saliva or dried urine cortisol test can show whether cortisol is too high at night, too low in the morning, or dysregulated across the day. Practically, this pattern often improves when you stop treating bedtime as the only sleep intervention. You have to anchor the whole rhythm. Get early morning sunlight, have a consistent wake time, drink caffeine earlier in the day or remove temporarily, less screen time and work stimulation at night, and a true nervous system wind down before bed. Because if the body spends all day in go, go, go mode, it may not magically shift into repair mode just because the clock says bedtime. Now, the second major reason people wake up in the middle of the night is blood sugar instability. And this is missed all the time. When glucose drops too low overnight, the body may release cortisol and adrenaline to bring glucose back up. So the person thinks, I woke up anxious. But the body may actually be saying, we need fuel. And this wake up may come with shakiness, sweating, restlessness, anxiety, hunger, vivid dreams, or a wired feeling. Some people can fall back asleep after eating something. Others wake up the next morning feeling hungover, foggy, or craving carbohydrates. And MTNR1B is a melatonin receptor gene that connects circadian rhythm with glucose regulation. And this matters because sleep timing, melatonin signaling, and glucose metabolism are all connected. Late eating, irregular meals, alcohol intake, poor protein intake, high sugar dinners, or long gaps without fuel can all contribute to overnight glucose swings. And if someone has a genetic tendency toward glucose dysregulation, those habits may create a stronger overnight response. Now, a continuous glucose monitor or CGM can be very useful here, not because everyone needs to obsess over glucose, but because it can show whether there are overnight dips, spikes, or unstable patterns. Basic labs can also help, including fasting glucose, fasting insulin, A1C, and sometimes a broader metabolic panel. So practically, this pattern often improves when you stabilize the daytime. So get enough protein, eat balanced meals, eat less refined sugar at night, drink less alcohol, have a dinner that includes protein, fiber, healthy fat, and the right amount of carbohydrates for your body. Some people do better with a small protein-based evening snack, and others do worse eating too close to bed. That is why tracking matters. The goal is not to follow a random sleep hack. The goal is to see whether glucose instability is waking the body up. Now, the third pattern is histamine. Histamine is usually thought of as allergies, itching, or sinus issues, but histamine is also a wake-promoting brain chemical, and that means if histamine is elevated at night, sleep can become lighter, more reactive, and more fragmented. And this pattern may look like waking hot, feeling itchy, flushed, congested, restless, or just suddenly alert. And some people also notice reflux, headaches, hives, anxiety, a racing heart, or digestive symptoms. Now, the pattern may be worse after wine, fermented foods, aged cheeses, vinegar, kombucha, processed meats, leftovers, or high histamine meals. And this is where DAO and HNMT matter, where DAO helps break down histamine mostly from food in the gut, and HNMT helps break down histamine inside your tissues. So if histamine clearance is strained and the person also has gut inflammation, hormone shifts, stress, mold exposure, or a high histamine diet, sleep may be one of the first places the body shows it. Now, this does not mean that everyone who wakes at 3 a.m. needs a low histamine diet. But if sleep issues come with itching, flushing, congestion, reflux, food reactions, or random anxiety after certain meals, histamine deserves attention. Histamine labs can be difficult because histamine fluctuates. Pattern tracking is often more useful than one isolated result. So you may look at your food timing, symptoms, inflammation markers, gut health, and genetic clues like DAO and HNMT. An oats test, organic acids test, may also provide helpful context around nutrient status, oxidative stress, gut-related metabolites, and broader metabolic strain. So practically, I usually think of histamine support as an experiment, not a life sentence. Just for 2 to 3 weeks, you can reduce the biggest histamine triggers like avoid leftovers, limit alcohol, support digestion, and track whether sleep, itching, congestion, or flushing improves. If it improves, that's useful information. The goal is not restriction forever. The goal is to identify whether histamine is part of your wake-up pattern and then fix it. Now, the fourth major pattern is low GABA tone, and GABA is the brain's main calming neurotransmitter. It helps quiet the nervous system, filter stimulation, relax the body, and support sleep. So when GABA tone is low or when the nervous system is too excitatory, sleep may feel fragile. You may fall asleep but wake easily. You may feel tense, alert, or internally restless. Small noises may bother you. Your thoughts may loop. Your body may feel tired, but your brain does not feel settled. And this is where GAD1 becomes relevant. GAD1 helps convert glutamate, which is more excitatory, into GABA, which is calming. And this pattern is common in people who are sensitive to caffeine, stress, screens, intense conversations, or overstimulation. It may also show up as a jaw clenching, muscle tension, internal buzzing, startle sensitivity, or feeling wired but exhausted. Organic acid testing can sometimes help identify nutrient needs, B vitamin markers, mitochondrial stress, oxidative stress, or neurotransmitter-related clues. You may also consider magnesium status, B6 status when clinically appropriate, medication history, supplement reactions, and caffeine tolerance. Practically, This pattern usually requires lowering the total excitatory load, and that may mean reducing caffeine, especially after the morning. Creating a real wind down routine, using slow breathing, stretching, prayer, meditation, or vagus nerve practices, supporting magnesium through food or supplementation if appropriate, and being careful with high dose B6 because more is not always better. And so for GABA related insomnia, the solution is usually not one giant sedating supplement. It's helping the brain feel safe enough to stay asleep. So, how do these patterns overlap? Well, here's where it gets interesting. These four pathways don't live in separate boxes. A glucose dip can trigger cortisol. Cortisol can destabilize glucose. Histamine can increase wakefulness and anxiety. Stress can worsen histamine. Low GABA tone can make every signal feel louder. So when someone says, I wake up at 3 a.m., the better question is not what supplement knocks me out. The better question is, what is the body responding to? Because if the real issue is glucose, a sedative may not fix the problem. If the real issue is histamine, more magnesium alone may not be enough. If the real issue is cortisol rhythm, eating a bedtime snack may not solve it. And if the nervous system is stuck in high alert mode, the body may need safety signals long before bedtime. And this is why I like to look at sleep through a biology first lens. We want to connect symptoms, timing, food patterns, stress load, genetics, labs, and lifestyle. And this is how the plan becomes more personalized. And so here are some labs and tools that can help. And the most useful tools depend on the pattern. So for cortisol, a multi-point or diurnal cortisol rhythm test can show how your stress hormone pattern moves throughout the day. For glucose, a CGM or continuous glucose monitor can show whether blood sugar is dipping, spiking, or swinging overnight. For histamine, food and symptom tracking may be more useful than one isolated lab, but inflammation markers, gut testing, and DAO or HNMT patterns can add context. For GABA and excitatory load, organic acid testing, magnesium status, B vitamin markers, caffeine tolerance, and GAD1 patterns may be helpful. Genes like MTNR1B, clock, GAD1, DAO, HNMT, and COMT don't diagnose the problem, they show tendencies, where labs show what may be happening now, and symptoms show how it's showing up in real life. And the best insight comes from pulling all three of those together. Now, here are some important red flags. So before wrapping up, I want to be clear, not every middle of the night wake up is a functional medicine pattern. If you snore, if you gasp for air, if you wake up with a dry mouth, you have morning headaches, high blood pressure, or feel exhausted even after a full night in bed, please consider being screened for sleep apnea. Sleep apnea can cause repeated nighttime awakenings, and it's often missed. Also, if your sleep disruption comes with chest pain, severe anxiety, night sweats, major mood changes, suicidal thoughts, or sudden changes in health, please seek medical care. Pattern recognition is helpful, but it does not replace medical evaluation. So here are my final thoughts. So if you wake up around 3 a.m., do not assume that your body is broken. It may be trying to correct something. It may be responding to stress, hormones, blood sugar changes, histamine, or an excitatory nervous system that can't fully downshift. The goal is not to sedate the signal. The goal is to understand the signal. And once you know the pattern, the plan becomes much more targeted. And that is how we move from guessing to actually supporting the biology behind better sleep. So if this video helped you, subscribe to Levelheaded Mind and check out my other videos on sleep, anxiety, histamine, methylation, and genetics. Because your symptoms are not random and your plan should not be either. And as always, I thank you for watching. I wish you well on your mental health care journey, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.